What is going on, world? So, today I ran across a conversation between Larry Elder and the host of Value Entertainment. Sorry, I don't know his name off the top of my head, but kind of rang a bell when I listened to his story, and it talks about why he doesn't have kids and the situation between him and his father and why he decided not to have kids. But it just made me think about certain things in life, and you should never judge a book by its cover until you actually get all the inside scoop. So let's check it out.
And you've never had kids.
Right.
Why a man with your kind of values, your passion for America, your conservative values, why didn't you have kids?
At the time, I didn't want them. One of my regrets in life is that I should have. Now I'm 71, and think it's too late. But at the time, I didn't. I mean, I was 25 years old at one time. I'm not that age anymore. And when I was younger, I think what happened is when I was younger, I really intensely disliked my father. Written a book about it called "Dear Father, Dear Son: 2 Lives, 8 Hours." My father used to spank us really hard with a belt. My brothers and I both disliked him, and now I'm 25 years old, and I sat down and had a conversation with my dad, not having really spoken to him for almost 10 years. And I told him how much I disliked him when I was growing up, how mean I thought he was, how angry I thought he was for silly reasons. And my dad and I had a conversation I thought was going to last for 5 or 10 minutes. It ended up lasting for 8 hours.
Wow.
And during that 8 hour conversation, I found out that my father never knew his biological father. My last name, Elder, is not the name of his biological father. And I said, I'm 25 years old now. I said, well, Dad, who was your father? He says, I have no idea. You never met your dad? No. Who was Elder? Elder was the name of a guy who was in my life the longest. He was an alcoholic. He used to beat up my mother, and when I tried to stop him, he beat me up. My dad said, then I came home at the age of 13, and I started quarreling with my mom's then boyfriend. Elder was long gone. And the mother sided with the boyfriend and threw my father out of the house, never to return. 13-year-old black boy, Athens, Georgia, Jim Crow South at the beginning of the Great Depression. For the next 8 hours, my dad just told me about his life. He became a Pullman porter in the trains. That's how he ended up in California. This is before the war, before the Second World War. My dad was blown away. You could walk to the front door of a restaurant in California, in LA, and get served. He always had crackers and tin cans of tuna because he never knew in the South if he'd be able to get a meal. So my dad made a mental note, maybe someday I'll relocate to California. Pearl Harbor, my dad joined the Marines. I asked him why. If there are any Marines out there, you know what I'm going to say. 2 reasons. They go where the action is, and my dad said, I love the uniforms. So he's stationed on Guam, and when the war is over, he goes to Chattanooga, Tennessee, where he met and married my mom to get him a job as a cook. My dad was in charge of cooking for the colored soldiers. And he was told, we don't hire niggers. He goes to an unemployment office. Lady says, you went to the wrong door. My dad goes out, sees colored only, goes to that door to the very same lady who sent him out. My dad came home with my mom and said, this is BS. I'm going to LA, get me a job as a cook, and I'll send for you. So he goes to LA. He walks around, and he's told, you don't have any references. My dad said, I need references to make ham and eggs. And my dad offered to work for free for a reference. They wouldn't even do that. So they treated him the same way in LA as they did in Chattanooga. Maybe it was a little more polite. He goes to an unemployment office. This time just one door. Lady says, I have nothing. My dad says, what time do you open? She says, 9. What time do you close? She says, 5. My dad said, I'll be sitting in that chair. Do you have something? My dad sat in the chair for a whole day, came back the next day, sat there for half a day. She calls him up. I have something. I don't know if you're going to want it. My dad said, of course I'm going to want it. I'm starting a family. What is it? And she said it's a job cleaning toilets at Nabisco brand bread. My dad did that for over 10 years, took a second full-time job cleaning at another bread company, cleaning toilets, cooked for a family on the weekend because he wanted my mom to be a stay-at-home mom, and he went to night school to get his GED, and then when he got his GED, he went to night school to learn how to operate a small restaurant. The man.
Hey, you ever seen a wealthy person or a wealthy family or a jet owner? Like, I got a jet, I'm sorry.
And
You ever done that?
unfortunately,
Seen
I do
that?
not have
What would they
Prime.
do? What did they do to get it? And number two, what would they do to get it all over again? Or could they even get it all over again? Were they just lucky the first time? For probably 40 years now, I've been wondering the same thing. I see some family that owns a house in the Hamptons on the beach or in La Jolla.
The man never slept. 5 minutes here, 15 minutes here, 20 minutes here. half hour here, not day after day, not week after week, not month after month, but year after year, which was why he was so grouchy. So as my dad is telling me this, my dad's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I'm getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and now I'm crying. And I apologized to my father for having such a harsh view towards him. And he said, there's nothing to apologize for, you just didn't know. My father said, just follow the advice I've always given you and your brothers. Hard work wins. You get out of life what you put into it. Larry, you cannot control the outcome, but you are 100% in control of the effort. And before you moan or groan about what someone did to you or said to you, go to the nearest mirror, look at it, and say to yourself, what could I have done to change the outcome? And finally, my dad said this, no matter how hard you work, how good you are, sooner or later, bad things are going to happen to you. How you deal with those bad things will tell your mother and you raised a man. I was 25 years old when I had that conversation with him. For the next 35 years, he and I were the best of friends. I wrote a book called Dear Father, Dear Son, 2 Lives, 8 Hours, about that 8-hour conversation. And it's changed people's lives. I get letters all over the world from people telling me that it changed them. So ingrained in me was I never wanted to have a child that felt the way I felt about my dad. And it was just in me. And it took a while for that to go away. By the way, my brothers both married women who had kids. And they both wanted to have kids. And I had the opposite reaction to my dad, as my brothers did. Let me tell you something real quickly about my mom. My mom was born on a farm in Huntsville, Alabama. My mom was a lifelong Democrat. My dad was a lifelong Republican. And you should have been a fly on the wall to hear some of the arguments. But nobody called anybody a fascist. Nobody called anybody a Nazi. Nobody said you only care about the rich, you don't care about the poor. They were able to argue aggressively, passionately, but nobody demeaned anybody. And why we can't...
And that's basically it. But that was a really touchy story about him and his father and why he doesn't have kids. And I think people should take the time out to actually get to know somebody's story before they decide to just write them off.